Well, Council, we spent a lot of time tonight talking about the Civic Auditorium. And back in May, there was a meeting in the East Wing of the Civic that was attended at various times during the evening by, I believe, at least 5 of us, having to do with our downtown specific plan. And I think those of us who were there saw that the community is extremely concerned, and I will say somewhat agitated, over the issue of the heights of some of the development agreement proposals that have been entered into the city system for the area covered by the downtown specific plan. And then a week or two later, I had the fortune or misfortune to be the only council member, I think, who tried to attend the EIR scoping meeting for one of those projects. And for the first time in my history in the city, I was unable to get into a public meeting because the doors had been locked, because the room was so crowded and the atmosphere had become so chaotic. And when I finally did get into the room, I saw our city staff looking about as lost as I've ever seen them. Because the meeting had degenerated into name-calling and someone's grabbing the microphone. And it became evident to me that night that our precious civil discourse in our city is breaking down over the issue of these development agreements, which many residents feel are being moved forward rather quickly and, to their mind, inappropriately, given that we haven't studied the whole downtown plan. So that was the genesis for this item, but really what it's based on is that I then went and looked at 2 documents. In 2010, we adopted our new land use and circulation element, which all of us who were on the council at the time voted for. It was adopted unanimously. And one of the things that it said was that while we were going to work very hard to preserve our neighborhoods and we were going to allow development in some 4% of the city, that because of the complexity of downtown, we were not going to do anything, make any final decision on downtown until we did a separate downtown specific plan. And in that land use and circulation element of 2010, it says that prior to the completion of a new downtown specific plan, the existing Bayside District specific plan and applicable land use designations will apply. So that, for me, raised the question, okay, what did we say in the previous land use and circulation element, which was done in 1984 and revised as late as April of 1998? And it very specifically sets limitations on what heights can be considered within the downtown. And it says that in the core area, no more than 6 stories, 84 feet. In the what was called the frame area, 6 stories, 84 feet. And that was it really for the entire downtown. Now that's separate from the zoning that was later adopted. We don't allow buildings of up to 84 feet in most of downtown even today. But what that did was it set the maximum, which is what your land use, your general plan does. It sets a maximum that can be done in any project. The zoning cannot exceed the maximum. A development agreement cannot exceed the maximum. So given that our current land use element says that prior to the adoption of a downtown specific plan we'll go by the prior designations, and given that the prior designations create an absolute height cap of 84 feet, it seemed appropriate to me to question why we currently are entertaining development agreements that go up to as much as 244 feet. Now, height itself is not necessarily a negative, and let me stress that. The traffic impacts and other impacts of buildings in downtown may, in the end, have more to do with the floor area ratio than with the height. But given that we told the community that we would not do anything until we had a downtown specific plan, given that we don't have a downtown specific plan, and given that until the time that we do, the maximum allowed downtown is 84 feet, it struck me it's really inappropriate that we're going forward as we are with the discretionary portions of these development agreement processes. Now, there are laws having to do with development agreements that we, of course, have to conform with. And the law says that a developer has the right to file a development agreement, and the city must receive that application and must process it. The law does not say we have to accept a development agreement, of course. We can vote no, although in Santa Monica that has rarely happened. It also doesn't say that we have to be interested in doing the discretionary process on a timeline, unless in some special circumstance, as with the Village Trailer Park, we've entered into some other agreement about timeline. So there's no reason why we must go ahead with the discretionary decisions on these development agreements prior to the completion of the downtown specific plan. We do have to continue to allow our staff to process the applications by law. We certainly have to allow the developer to, him or herself, conduct a public meeting, a public float-up of the meeting to describe what the project will be to the public. That's on their initiative and on their dime. They can certainly, process an EIR, which the developer pays for, and our staff should continue to do the work that's required on EIRs. What I'm talking about, though, specifically is those discretionary hearings where decisions are made that give an application what I'll call process momentum. And those include not just the City Council, but the Planning Commission and the Architectural Review Board. So the proposal that the three of us are making tonight is that as a policy matter, in the interest of good governance, we determine not to have any further discretionary public hearings, Planning Commission, ARB, or City Council, on development agreements downtown that exceed what the previous land use element said was the maximum height of 84 feet. It doesn't prejudice what will happen to those in the long run. Once we have a downtown specific plan, we may decide that these are the appropriate projects and that they are within what the downtown specific plan calls for. It's just a matter of doing first things first.